Salams and welcome. Thank you for joining me in part number 15. We're looking at the dimensions of Islam by the roving ambassador of Islam, Mawlana Abdul Aleem Siddiqui al-Qadiri, rahmatullah alayh. And thanks to Sheikh Abdul Al-Hadi al-Qadiri, the president of the Imam Ahmad Rida Academy, for giving us permission to go through the analysis of this book. Alhamdulillah, there are 2 volumes of this book. Please contact them. This is volume 1 and volume 2, beautiful prepared by the Imam Ahmad Academy Research, at least Academy, and there's the details at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that there. The Imam Ahmad Raza Academy in Durban. Please try and get a copy of this book and get it for your schools or your libraries. And I'll give you the inner cover. We've got it there as compiled by Imam Ahmad Rida Academy, published by, I can't see the publication so well, but you can contact them in Durban, South Africa. And this is the words and thoughts of roving ambassador of Islam, Mawlana Abdul Aleem Siddiqui al-Qadiri. Right, and we're coming to the last of his talk, fabulous talk that he gave at the Oriental Culture Society in Tokyo, in Japan, so many years ago. And he's talking about the Muslim contribution to science and technology. Right, so now we're looking at biology, geology, and geography. Right, let's continue with Mawlana Siddiqui. While reviewing the Quranic exhortation to cultivate science, I have already shown, though very briefly, how forcefully it has appealed to the Muslims to study plant life. Now I shall briefly touch upon the pioneer work, and as what we mentioned before, that is only recently that plant life has been shown to have 2 sexes, male and female, whereas this was shown in the Quran 1400 years ago. Now I shall briefly touch upon their pioneer work in this field in the words of an eminent historian, and I quote, Botany they advanced far beyond the state in which it had been left by Dioscorides and augmented the herbology of the Greeks by the addition of 2,000 plants. Regular gardens existed both in Cordova and Baghdad, at Cairo and Fez, for the education of pupils, where discourses were delivered by the most learned in sciences. End of quote. The works of Muslim scientists in zoology was no less remarkable, for the Quran is referred to animal life as constituting a mighty sign of the greatness and glory of the Lord. Among Muslim zoologists, Ad-Damiri ranks supreme. He is famous for his History of Animals, a work which, according to Amir Ali, forestalled Buffon by 700 years. So let's look at the role of Muslims in geology and geography. The Quranic injunction to ponder over the problems of the formation of the earth and the conditions of life obtained thereon was greatly responsible for infusing in the Muslims an enthusiasm for geological and geographical studies. Geology was cultivated by the Muslim scientists under the name of a Tashirul Ard, the science of the anatomy of the earth, and to this branch of knowledge they made important, magnificent contributions. In the field of geographical research, however, their contributions were great and glorious. They studied physical features, climate conditions, variations of seasons, and properties of the soil, and arrived at important and far-reaching conclusions. They determined the form of the earth and measured the size of the earth. Subhanallah. And I quote, on the shores of the Red Sea, in the plains of Shinar, by the aid of an astrolabe, the elevation of the pole above the horizon, observes Draper, was determined at 2 stations on the same meridian, exactly 1 degree apart. The distance between the 2 stations was then measured and found to be 200,000 Hashemite cubits. This gave for the entire circumference of the earth, absolutely amazing, look at that, about 24,000 miles, 34,000 of our miles, a determination very close to the truth. But since the spherical form could not be positively asserted from one such measurement, the Caliph Ma'mun caused another to be made near Kufa in Mesopotamia. His astronomers divided themselves into 2 parties, and starting from a given point, each party measured an arc of 1 degree, the one northward, the other southward. The result is given in cubits. If the cubit employed was that known as the royal cubit, the length of a degree was ascertained within 1/3 of a mile of its true value. From these measures, the Caliph concluded that the globular form was established. Subhanallah. And they even made maps of the world, as Draper further says. In the Spirit of Islam, page 384. Al-Baghdadi left one book on land surveying so excellent that by some it has been declared to be a copy of Euclid's lost work on the subject. The Muslims' pioneering work in mathematical geography has been commented upon by the author in these words, and I quote, their progress in mathematical geography was no less remarkable. The works of Ibn al-Hawkal, of Makrizi, of Istakhri, Masudi, al-Bayruni, al-Kumat al-Idrisi, Kazwini, Ibn al-Wardi, and Abul Fida show that the Saracens attained in this department of science, called by them the Rasm al-Ard, at a time when Europe firmly believed in the flatness of the earth and was ready to burn any foolhardy person who thought otherwise. The Arabs taught geography by globes, that is a spherical earth, subhanallah. Let's look at the field of astronomy. Time and again, the Quran speaks of heavenly bodies as manifestations of the might and majesty of the ruler supreme of the universe. It repeatedly refers to the revolution of the planets in their orbits, the variation and succession of night and day, the phenomenon of the appearance and disappearance of the sun, the changes of the moon, and the immutable laws pervading the movements of the planets. It is gratifying to note that the Quranic invitation to study celestial phenomena has not fallen on deaf ears. For movements, Abdul Rahman Sufi is noted for his improvements in the photometry of stars. Prince Jafar has given us his important observations regarding the erratic movement of comets in his very valuable treatise. The discoveries of Al-Kholi relating to the summer solstices and the autumn equinox are a most valuable contribution to astronomical learning. The astronomical table of Abul Wafa, called Zil Shamil, is a monument of industry and keen and absolutely accurate observation. He introduced the use of the sescent and the tangent in trigonometry and in astronomical observations. And M. Sedilot goes on to say, but this was not all. Struck by the imperfection of the lunar theory of Ptolemy, he verified the ancient observations and discovered independently of the equation of the center and the eviction a third inequality, which is no other than the variation determined 6 centuries later by Tycho Brahe. Let's continue with Mawlana Siddiqui as he says, Ibn Yunus, the inventor of the pendulum and the measurement of time by his oscillations, is famous for his great work named after his patron and sovereign, Zij al-Akbar al-Hakimi, which soon displaced the work of Claudius Ptolemy. It was reproduced among the Persians by the astronomer-poet Umar Khayyum in 1079, among the Greeks in the syntax of Chrysokoka, I don't know how to pronounce it, among the Mongols by Nasiruddin Tusi in the Zil al-Khani, and among the Chinese in the astronomy of the Kouqiu king in 1280. And thus what is attributed to the ancient civilizations of China is only a borrowed light from the Muslims. SubhanAllah, stay tuned. Join me in the next episode, which is part number 16, as we come to the conclusion of this magnificent lecture by Mawlana Siddiqui. Stay well, look after yourself. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Aleem.